The last normal thing my daughter ever said to me was, "Dad, can I ask you something?" It was 10:47 on a Tuesday night. I remember the exact time because I had been sitting at the kitchen table, looking at my phone and waiting for Emily to come downstairs. She had been acting strange for weeks. She barely talked during dinner, kept her bedroom door locked, and whenever I asked if something was wrong, she gave me the same answer. "I'm fine, Dad." I knew my daughter well enough to know that fine usually meant the opposite. When she finally walked into the kitchen, she was wearing a gray hoodie and sweatpants. Her hair was tied back, and her face looked pale. She sat across from me. "Can I ask you something?" I put my phone down. "Of course." She stared at the table for several seconds. "If I ever disappeared?" I smiled nervously. "Okay, that's a pretty dark way to start a question." She didn't smile. "Dad, please. Just listen." Something in her voice made my stomach tighten. I leaned forward. "I'm listening." She looked toward the kitchen window. "If something happens to me, don't trust anyone." I felt the smile disappear from my face. "What do you mean?" "Just promise me." "Emily, you're scaring me." "Promise me, Dad." I didn't know what else to do. "I promise." She nodded slowly. Then she stood up. "Good. Wait. Where is this coming from?" She walked toward the stairs. "Emily?" She stopped. "Is someone bothering you? Is someone threatening you?" She didn't turn around. "No." "Then what is it?" For a moment, I thought she was going to tell me. Instead, she whispered, "I love you." Then she went upstairs. I sat there for several minutes, staring at the stairs. I wanted to follow her. I wanted to knock on her bedroom door and demand an explanation. But I didn't. That was the mistake I would replay in my head 1,000 times. The next morning, I woke up at 6:30. Emily was usually difficult to wake up for school. I would knock twice, then open the door, and she would bury herself under the blanket. That morning, her bed was empty. At first, I thought she had already gotten ready. Then I noticed something strange. Her backpack was still beside the desk. Her school shoes were still in the hallway. Her phone was gone. I checked the bathroom. Empty. Kitchen. Empty. Living room. Empty. "Emily?" No answer. I called her phone. It went straight to voicemail. My heart began beating faster. I ran upstairs and checked her room again. The window was closed. Her jacket was hanging on the chair. Her wallet was on the desk. Her passport was in the drawer. She hadn't packed anything. She hadn't planned to leave. I grabbed my keys and called the police. While I waited, I searched the house one more time. Then I saw something underneath her pillow. A small white envelope. My name was written on it. Dad. My hand started shaking. I opened it. Inside was a single piece of paper. There were only 7 words. "You promised. Now find out why." I read the sentence again. And again. Then my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered immediately. "Hello?" For 3 seconds, there was silence. Then a man's voice said, "Daniel Carter?" "Yes." "Your daughter is in danger." My blood turned cold. "Who are you?" The man ignored my question. "Whatever you do, don't call the police." The line went dead. I stood completely still. Then I looked down at the note in my hand. For the first time, I understood what Emily had meant the night before. She hadn't been asking me to trust her. She had been warning me that I shouldn't trust anyone else. And somehow, my 16-year-old daughter had known that this morning was coming. I called the number back. Nothing. I tried again. Still nothing. Then I remembered the man's warning. Don't call the police. Normally, I would have ignored him. But this wasn't a normal situation. My daughter had disappeared, left me a note, and somehow a stranger knew exactly what had happened. I walked into Emily's room and closed the door behind me. If she had left me a message, there had to be more. I started searching. I checked her desk, her drawers, the closet, even the space beneath her bed. Nothing. Then I noticed her laptop. It was open. Emily always locked it when she wasn't using it. This time, the screen showed a single folder on the desktop. Its name was simply Read Me. My hands were shaking as I opened it. Inside were 3 files. The first was a photograph. The second was a video. The third was a document with no name. I opened the photograph. It showed Emily standing outside a building I didn't recognize. Beside her was a man. My heart stopped. I knew him. Not personally, but I had seen him before. His name was Victor Black. He had been a client at the company where I worked several years earlier. He was wealthy, well-connected, and the kind of man who never seemed to wait for anything. If he wanted something, people moved. But why was he standing beside my daughter? I opened the video. Emily appeared on the screen. She was sitting in what looked like her bedroom. Her eyes were red, as if she had been crying. "Dad," she said quietly, "if you're watching this, then something went wrong." I leaned closer to the screen. "I don't know who you can trust anymore. I know you're going to want to call the police, but please don't do it yet." She took a deep breath. "There are things I've found out about Mom." I froze. "Mom?" Emily continued. "Please don't be angry with me. I didn't tell you because I was scared. I found some messages on Mom's old tablet. They were from a man named Victor Black." I stared at the screen. I don't know what they mean, but I know they're connected to what happened to me. The video suddenly ended. I sat there in silence. Sarah, my ex-wife. Victor Black, my daughter. 3 names that suddenly seemed connected. I grabbed my phone and called Sarah. She answered after several rings. "Daniel? Where are you?" There was a pause. "What happened?" "Emily is missing." Silence. Then Sarah whispered, "What?" "She disappeared this morning." "Have you called the police?" "Yes." Another pause. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. "Daniel, did she leave you a message?" I stood up. "How did you know?" Sarah didn't answer. "Sarah, how did you know?" "I need to see you." "Why?" "Not over the phone." "Tell me now." "I can't." I heard her breathing heavily. Then she said, "Go to the old apartment." "What?" "The apartment we lived in before the divorce." "Why?" "Because there's something there you were never supposed to find." The call ended. I stood frozen in Emily's room. For years, I had believed my marriage had ended because Sarah and I had simply grown apart. Now, for the first time, I wondered if I had been wrong. I grabbed my jacket and keys. Before leaving, I looked at Emily's photograph one more time. She was standing beside Victor Black. But something bothered me. I zoomed in. Emily wasn't looking at Victor. She was looking behind him. And in the reflection of the building's glass door, I saw another man. Someone who had been watching them. Someone Emily clearly knew. I grabbed my phone. Then I heard footsteps downstairs. I froze. Someone was inside my house. And I was alone. Or at least, I thought I was. Someone was inside my house. I stood completely still at the top of the stairs listening. One step. Then another. Slow. Careful. Whoever it was didn't want me to know they were there. I reached into my jacket and quietly grabbed my phone. My first instinct was to call the police, but then I remembered the man's warning. Don't call the police. I hated myself for listening to a stranger, but something told me that whoever had entered my house knew exactly what they were doing. I looked toward the stairs. The footsteps stopped. "Who's there?" I shouted. No answer. I slowly walked downstairs. The front door was still locked. The kitchen was empty. The living room was empty. Then I heard something from behind me. A chair moved. I turned around. Nobody. But the window was open. Cold air rushed into the room. I ran toward it and looked outside. Nothing. Whoever had been inside was gone. Then I noticed something on the floor. A small black USB drive. I picked it up. There was a single word written on it. Emily. My hands tightened around it. I ran upstairs and connected it to Emily's laptop. There was only one file. A video. I opened it. At first, the screen was completely dark. Then Emily's voice appeared. "Dad, if you found this, someone has probably already been inside the house." I stopped breathing. I knew they would come looking for this. The video showed Emily sitting in a dark room. She looked frightened. "I need you to go to the old apartment. But before you do, you need to understand something." She leaned closer to the camera. "Mom isn't the person you think she is." My heart dropped. "She didn't leave because she stopped loving you." I stared at the screen. "She left because she was trying to protect us." The video suddenly changed. A photograph appeared. It showed Sarah standing beside Victor Black. But this photograph was different. They weren't outside a building. They were standing in a hospital hallway. I recognized the place immediately. It was the hospital where Emily had been born. My hands went cold. Then Emily's voice continued. "Dad, there's something about me that you don't know." The video ended. I stared at the blank screen. Something about Emily. What could that possibly mean? My phone suddenly vibrated. A message. Unknown number. Go to the old apartment alone. Another message arrived. And bring a USB. Then a third. You have 1 hour. I looked at the clock. 11:18. I had no idea where Emily was. I didn't know who I could trust. But I knew one thing. I was going to find my daughter. I grabbed the USB, my keys, and my jacket. Before leaving, I looked once more at the photograph on the screen. Sarah. Victor. The hospital. Emily. There was a secret connecting all four of them. And somehow, I had spent 16 years knowing nothing about it. I drove through the dark streets toward our old apartment. Halfway there, I noticed a black SUV behind me. It followed me through 3 turns. I accelerated. So did they. I turned onto a narrow side street. The SUV followed. My hands tightened around the steering wheel. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. A man's voice said only 5 words. "Daniel, they're following you." I looked into the rearview mirror. The SUV was still there. Then the man added, "Don't go to the apartment." I swallowed. "Who are you?" His answer made my blood freeze. "Someone who knew your daughter before you did. Someone who knew your daughter before you did." The words stayed in my head as I drove. I wanted to ask 100 questions, but the call had already ended. The black SUV was still behind me. I had 2 choices: keep driving toward the old apartment or follow the stranger's warning. For the first time that night, I decided to trust my instincts instead of anyone else. I turned sharply into a parking garage. The SUV continued past the entrance. I waited several seconds before turning off my headlights. Silence filled the car. I checked the rearview mirror. Nothing. Then I noticed a second vehicle parked 3 spaces away. A dark sedan. Its engine was running. Someone was sitting inside. I immediately started the car again and drove out through another exit. I had no idea where to go. Then I remembered something. Michael Reed? My oldest friend. If there was anyone I could trust, it was him. I called. He answered immediately. "Daniel? It's almost midnight. Michael, I need your help." He heard my voice and became serious. "What happened?" "Emily is missing." There was silence. Then he said, "What?" "I'll explain everything when I get there." 20 minutes later, I arrived at his house. Michael opened the door before I even knocked. He looked at me and immediately knew something was wrong. "You look terrible. My daughter is missing." He stepped aside. "Come in." I told him everything. The note. The phone call. The laptop. Victor Black. Sarah. The USB drive. And the man who warned me not to go to the apartment. Michael listened without interrupting. When I finished, he looked at the USB. "Did you open everything on this?" "Yes." "Are you sure?" I nodded. He took it from me and connected it to his computer. After a few seconds, a hidden folder appeared. Michael stared at the screen. "Daniel." "What?" There are 12 files here. My stomach tightened. 12? He opened the first one. It contained photographs. Emily at school. Emily leaving our house. Emily walking through a shopping center. Emily sitting in a cafe. Someone had been watching her. 4 months. Maybe longer. Michael opened another file. It was a document filled with dates. At the top was Emily's name. Underneath it was a date. May 6, 2010. I stared at the screen. That can't be right. Michael looked at me. Why? That's Emily's birthday. He scrolled down. The next line said, "Subject transferred to Carter family." My heart stopped. What does that mean? Michael didn't answer. He opened another file. There was a scanned document. A hospital record. I recognized the hospital immediately. The same one from Emily's video. Michael zoomed in. My name was there. Father, Daniel Carter. Then Sarah's name. Mother, Sarah Carter. Everything looked normal. Until we reached the bottom. There was another name. Biological mother, unknown. I felt the room spin. No. Michael stared at me. Daniel. No. That's impossible. I grabbed the mouse. Emily is my daughter. Michael didn't argue. I know. Sarah gave birth to her. He looked back at the document. Apparently, that's not what this says. My phone suddenly rang. Sarah. I answered. Sarah, what is going on? She was crying. Daniel, you found it, didn't you? Found what? The records. I stood up. You knew? I tried to protect you. Where is Emily? Sarah was silent. Then she whispered, She's not your biological daughter. My entire body went numb. Before I could speak, she continued, And Victor Black isn't the person you should be afraid of. Then who? Her voice trembled. The people who took Emily 16 years ago. The call ended. Michael looked at me. Daniel. I couldn't move. For 16 years, I had believed Emily was my daughter. Now someone was telling me that the truth was something completely different. Then another message appeared on my phone. You have 30 minutes. Underneath, it was a photograph of Emily. She was sitting in a chair. Alive. Terrified. And standing behind her was a man I recognized. It was Victor Black. I stared at the photograph until my eyes began to hurt. Emily was alive. That was the only thing that mattered. She was sitting in a wooden chair with her hands tied behind her. Her face was pale, and there was a small cut above her eyebrow. Behind her stood Victor Black. He was looking directly into the camera. Michael stepped closer. Daniel, we need to think. I don't have time to think. I grabbed my jacket. I know where she is. Michael blocked the door. No, you don't. I know Victor has her. That doesn't mean you know where he is keeping her. I stopped. He was right. Then my phone vibrated again. Another message. Come alone. A location followed. I looked at it. It was an abandoned warehouse near the river. Michael read the message over my shoulder. You're not going alone. Emily is my daughter. And that's exactly why you're not going alone. You're too emotional. I looked at him. What would you do if it were your daughter? He didn't answer. Instead, he grabbed his coat. Let's go. We drove toward the warehouse in silence. The entire time, I kept looking at the photograph on my phone. Emily had always been strong. Even when her mother and I divorced, she never complained. When she was bullied at school, she never told me until months later. When she was scared, she always pretended she wasn't. But now she looked terrified. I couldn't stop thinking about the night before. Dad, if something happens to me, don't trust anyone. I should have asked more questions. I should have stayed with her. I should have protected her. The warehouse appeared in the distance. It was an enormous abandoned building surrounded by broken fences and empty parking lots. Michael parked several hundred yards away. We walk from here. I nodded. We approached the building carefully. The main door was open. Inside, it was completely dark. I whispered, Emily? No answer. We moved deeper into the warehouse. Then a light turned on. Victor Black stood on the other side of the room. He was alone. At least, that's what I thought. "Daniel," he said calmly, "where is my daughter?" Victor smiled slightly. "She's alive." "Where?" "You came faster than I expected." I stepped forward. "Bring her out." Victor looked at Michael. "You weren't supposed to bring anyone. He's my friend." Victor sighed. "That makes things more complicated." Suddenly, two men appeared behind us. Michael turned around. Before he could react, one of them hit him. He fell to the ground. "Michael!" I rushed toward him, but Victor raised his hand. "Don't." I stopped. Victor looked at me. "You think I'm the enemy. You kidnapped my daughter." "No." He shook his head. "I saved her." I laughed bitterly. "You expect me to believe that? You don't understand what Emily is." My anger disappeared. "What does that mean?" Victor stepped closer. 16 years ago, your wife came to me because she was afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Of the people who were searching for Emily." I stared at him. "Why would anyone search for a baby?" Victor's expression changed. "Because Emily wasn't supposed to survive." My heart sank. "What are you talking about?" Before he could answer, a woman's voice came from behind me. "Because they were trying to erase her." I turned. Sarah stood in the doorway. She was crying. "Sarah?" She looked at me. "I'm sorry, Daniel." I couldn't speak. She walked toward me. "Everything I told you about Emily's birth was a lie." "Why?" "Because if the truth became public, they would have killed her." I looked at Victor. "Who are they?" Sarah's face went pale. Then every light in the warehouse suddenly turned off. A gunshot echoed through the darkness. Sarah screamed, and someone whispered beside my ear, "They're here! They're here!" The whisper was so close to my ear that I felt someone's breath. I turned around, but the darkness swallowed everything. Another gunshot exploded through the warehouse. Michael shouted my name. "Daniel, get down." I dropped to the floor. Something struck the metal wall behind me. People were moving everywhere. I could hear footsteps shouting and the sound of something heavy falling. Then the emergency lights came on. For a second, I couldn't understand what I was seeing. Victor was gone. Sarah was on the floor. Michael was trying to crawl toward her. And the two men who had been standing behind us were nowhere to be seen. I ran toward Sarah. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "No. I'm okay. Where's Emily?" Sarah looked at me with tears in her eyes. "They took her." My stomach dropped. "Who?" She pointed toward a metal door at the far end of the warehouse. "They went that way." I ran. Michael grabbed my arm. "Wait!" I pulled away. "I am not waiting." I reached the door and opened it. A narrow hallway stretched ahead. At the end, I saw someone running. "Emily." The figure stopped. For 1 second, I thought it was my daughter. Then the person disappeared around the corner. I chased them. When I reached the end of the hallway, there was another door. It was locked. I kicked it once. Nothing. Twice. The lock broke. I rushed inside. There was a small room with a table, 2 chairs, and a computer. No Emily. But on the table was something familiar. Her necklace. The one I had given her when she turned 13. I picked it up. There was a tiny piece of paper underneath it. "Dad, I'm sorry." My hands began shaking. Then the computer screen turned on. A video started playing automatically. Emily appeared. This time, she wasn't scared. She looked calm. "Dad, if you're seeing this, I need you to listen carefully." I sat down. "I know you've discovered the truth about me." She paused. "I am your daughter. Maybe not by blood, but you're the only father I've ever known." My eyes filled with tears. 16 years ago, my biological parents were killed because of something they discovered. Mom took me and gave me to you. I stared at the screen. You didn't know anything because she wanted you to believe I was yours. She knew you'd protect me with your life. Emily looked down. But someone found me. The video changed. A photograph appeared. It showed a group of men standing around a table. One of them was Victor. Another was a man I had never seen before. Then the image zoomed in. I froze. I knew him. Detective Robert Hayes. The detective investigating Emily's disappearance. My heart began pounding. The video continued. Dad, don't trust the police. I suddenly understood. The warning. The phone call. The strange people following me. The detective who had arrived at our house that morning. This wasn't a random kidnapping. Someone inside the investigation was involved. Emily continued speaking. There's one person who can help you. A name appeared on the screen. Michael Reed? I looked toward the door. Michael was standing there, but his face was completely different. He looked terrified. Daniel, he whispered. What is this? He stepped into the room. I can explain. I stood up. You knew? No. You knew Emily wasn't my biological daughter? He shook his head. I swear I didn't. Then why did she put your name in the video? Michael looked at the screen. I don't know. Before I could say anything else, my phone rang. Detective Hayes. I answered. Daniel, where are you? I said nothing. He continued. We found Emily. My heart stopped. Where? There was a pause. Then he said, she was found dead. I dropped the phone. Michael stared at me. No. I looked at the screen. Emily was still there. Alive. Smiling. And suddenly I realized something. Hayes had just lied to me, which meant he already knew where she was. And he was coming for us. I picked up the phone again. Hayes. There was no answer. Detective Hayes, I know you're lying. Silence. Then his voice returned, colder this time. You should have stayed out of this, Daniel. My hands tightened around the phone. Where is my daughter? You'll never see her again. The call ended. I looked at Michael. We have to move. He nodded. We ran back toward the main warehouse. Sarah was standing near the entrance, crying. Where is Emily? She asked. Hayes has her. Sarah covered her mouth. No. You knew he was involved? She shook her head. I suspected. I didn't know. Then start talking. She looked at me. 16 years ago, Emily's biological parents discovered a financial network involving several powerful people. They had evidence. Before they could expose it, they were killed. By Victor? No. She looked toward the dark hallway. Victor was trying to protect them. I stared at her. Then why did Emily say his name? Because she didn't trust him completely. Sarah took a shaky breath. Victor wanted Emily because he believed she had access to the evidence her parents left behind. I remembered the USB. What evidence? Sarah looked at Michael. Ask him. I turned. Michael's face went pale. Why are you looking at me? Sarah whispered, because you were the one who helped hide it. I stepped toward Michael. What is she talking about? He looked down. Daniel, 16 years ago, I didn't know the whole story. Tell me. I helped Sarah create a new identity for Emily. My heart sank. You knew. I knew something was wrong. I didn't know what. Where is the evidence? Michael didn't answer. Sarah stepped forward. It's inside the necklace. I looked at the necklace in my hand. What? The one Emily left behind. I turned it over. There was a tiny seam on the back. I used my fingernail to pry it open. Inside was a microscopic memory card. My heart started pounding. Michael looked at it. That could expose everyone. Then that's why they took Emily. I put the card into my phone using an adapter. A folder appeared. Hundreds of documents. Names. Bank accounts. Photographs. Payments. Police records. Politicians. Businessmen. Judges. And at the bottom was one file. Hayes, Project Emily. I opened it. The document contained a photograph of Detective Hayes standing beside Victor. But the date shocked me. It was taken 3 years ago. Hayes had known about Emily long before her disappearance. Then another file opened automatically. A video. Hayes appeared on screen. "Emily Carter has been located," a second voice asked. "And the father?" Hayes answered. "He doesn't know anything yet." The recording ended. I looked at Sarah. "They planned this." She nodded. "But why take Emily now?" Michael suddenly looked at me. "Because someone must have discovered that she found the evidence." I remembered Emily's strange behavior. The locked bedroom. The secret messages. The late nights. She had been investigating them. And then I remembered something else. Her teacher, Laura Bennett. Emily had mentioned her several times. I called her. She answered immediately. "Daniel? Laura, I need you to tell me something." "What happened?" "Did Emily ever talk to you about Victor Black?" There was a long silence. Then Laura whispered, "Yes." My heart raced. "What did she tell you?" "She said she found something in the school archives." "What?" "An old photograph." "What photograph?" Laura began crying. "It showed Emily's biological parents." I froze. "Where is it?" "I have it." "Laura, listen to me. Don't give it to anyone." "I already did." "To whom?" She hesitated. Then she said, "Detective Hayes." The call ended. Michael looked at me. "We're running out of time." Then the warehouse doors exploded open. Police officers rushed inside. At the front was Detective Hayes. He pointed his gun directly at me. "Daniel Carter," he shouted, "put your hands where I can see them." I raised my hands. Hayes smiled. "You should have listened when I told you to stop." Then a voice came from behind the officers. "Dad." I turned. Emily was standing there, alive. But Hayes had a gun pressed against her head. "Dad!" The sound of Emily's voice broke something inside me. She was alive. That was all I could think about. She stood behind Detective Hayes, her hands tied, a bruise across her cheek. Hayes kept his gun pressed against her head. "Emily!" She looked at me. "Dad, don't move." Hayes smiled. "Smart girl." I lowered my hand slowly. "Let her go." "You still don't understand, Daniel." "I understand enough." I looked around. Several officers had their weapons pointed at me. But something was wrong. They weren't looking at Hayes. They were following his orders. All of them. Except one. Michael. He was standing behind a metal support, watching everything. I looked at him. He gave me the smallest nod. I understood. The memory card was still in my pocket. The evidence was safe. But it wouldn't matter if Hayes killed Emily. "Take the card," Hayes said. I shook my head. "I don't have it." He pressed the gun harder against Emily's head. "Don't lie." Emily looked at me. "Dad." I could see fear in her eyes. But beneath that fear, there was something else. She was trying to tell me something. Then I remembered her warning. Don't trust anyone. I looked at Hayes. "You know what, Detective?" He raised an eyebrow. "What?" "I think you're afraid." His expression changed. "You're afraid of what's on that card." He stepped closer. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, I do." I smiled. "Because I already sent a copy." Hayes froze. "That isn't possible." "I sent it to 3 different people." It was a lie. But it worked. For the first time, Hayes looked genuinely afraid. "Who?" "A journalist. A federal investigator. And someone inside your own department." Hayes looked toward the officers. One of them lowered his weapon. Then another. Hayes shouted, "Don't move." But it was too late. Michael stepped from behind the support. "Drop the gun, Hayes!" Hayes turned. Michael was holding a weapon. "Michael!" Hayes pointed his gun at him. I moved forward. "Hayes, let her go!" He looked at me, then at Emily, then at the officers. He knew he was trapped. Suddenly, Emily kicked backward. The gun moved away from her head. I rushed forward. Michael tackled Hayes. The officers finally moved. Within seconds, Hayes was on the floor, handcuffed. I grabbed Emily. I pulled her into my arms. She started crying. I held her as tightly as I could. I thought I'd lost you. You didn't. I promised I'd find you. I knew you would. Sarah came running toward us. She stopped several feet away. Emily looked at her. Mom. Sarah broke down crying. I'm sorry. Emily walked toward her. For several seconds, they simply stood there. Then Emily hugged her. I watched them. After everything that had happened, I finally understood the truth. Being a father had never been about blood. It was about being there, protecting someone, loving them, choosing them every single day. Later that night, the investigation exposed the entire network. Hayes was arrested. Victor Black disappeared for several days before turning himself in and agreeing to testify. The evidence from Emily's necklace eventually led to dozens of arrests. And Sarah finally told me the complete story. She had taken Emily 16 years ago because her biological parents were in danger. She had trusted me because she knew I would love Emily as my own. She had been right. Months later, Emily and I sat together on the porch. She rested her head against my shoulder. Dad? Yeah? Do you regret anything? I thought about everything. The lies. The fear. The night she disappeared. No. She looked surprised. Not even after everything? I smiled. Because it brought me to the truth. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, You know you're still my dad, right? I put my arm around her. I never stopped being your dad. She smiled. And for the first time in months, I felt peaceful. Emily had been taken from me. She had been hunted. She had been forced to live with secrets no 16-year-old should ever have known. But she had come home. And I had kept the promise I made that night. If something happened to her, I would find out why. I just never realized how much the truth would cost.